The media is abuzz with alleged falsehoods from Trump regarding Iran. However, it's worth taking a moment to consider why every purported scandal seems to propel America closer to another expensive conflict in the Middle East. Breaking news today.
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
MSNBC is reporting that Trump's alleged lies about Iran are starting to unravel, leading to an embarrassing failure. The true narrative here isn't solely about Trump's statements. It's about a bipartisan Washington elite determined to keep America embroiled in endless conflicts. This is, after all, the same media outlet that for years overlooked the problematic foreign policy of Biden-Harris, which arguably weakened America and left the Middle East in turmoil. Perhaps the real embarrassment is the predictably partisan nature of their coverage. It's worth pausing to consider. Are we really surprised? Let's jump right into this.
I feel like maybe they had a note card that said obliterated on it and they gave it to all those people and made them say it. Who knows? But that was the message from the Trump administration since Saturday night. Clearly, that's what they kept saying over and over and over again. Even, by the way, as top members of the military, including high-ranking people within this administration, were saying it was too early to make an assessment. Because it was too early to make an assessment.
Now, after months of failed negotiations, when the current administration takes decisive action, the same critics who previously facilitated Iran's nuclear ambitions demand perfect intelligence and immediate results. The previous administration's Iran deal, which legitimized these bunkers and allowed uranium enrichment under diplomatic pretenses, provided Iran a potential pathway to nuclear capability, emboldening its hardliners. Mainstream media outlets, particularly MSNBC, often highlight discrepancies between initial intelligence and political statements, treating them as scandals. Despite this, the administration's political arm quickly declared a complete victory, contradicting early assessments from the Defense Intelligence Agency, which suggested that Iran's core nuclear capabilities were only set back by a few months. The Pentagon's caution and the intelligence community's skepticism are appropriate and should be heeded, not ignored. The key issue isn't whether the term obliterated appeared on a notacard, but whether the facts support the claims made. This tactic is not unique to any particular party or president. It's a staple of Washington politics, and it's what Americans have come to expect from their leaders. The real takeaway should not focus on who said what on television, but on the risks of hasty military actions without clear, achievable goals. Americans are weary of these global interventions and deserve a foreign policy that prioritizes their interest. The pattern of overpromising and underdelivering on foreign policy is a bipartisan issue. For decades, both parties have entangled the United States in Middle Eastern conflicts with minimal achievements, wasting resources and diminishing credibility. Americans want a government that acknowledges the limits of military power and is committed to defending national interests, not policing the world for globalist agendas. The media's fixation on embarrassing the administration detracts from a meaningful discussion about our ongoing involvement in the region. The military's top brass, including high-ranking officers, have stated that it's too early to definitively evaluate the effectiveness of the strikes. Rather than obsessing over talking points and partisan blame, it's time to demand accountability from all political leaders who have backed these unsuccessful interventions.
But for Trump, it's always about the one day of headlines, the one-word slogan, claiming victory right off the bat, about obfuscation and defiance being prioritized over facts.
Even Iran's foreign ministry has acknowledged the severe damage to their installations. The recent strikes have successfully met their objectives, marking a significant shift from previous policy failures. This is the same group that previously supported a nuclear deal which allowed Iran to continue its enrichment activities and bolstered its hardliners. The real issue at hand is the broader policy direction and the impact of the previous Democratic administration's diplomatic failures. For decades, both parties have entangled the U.S. in conflicts that have done little to enhance our security. They focus on selective intelligence leaks and minimize the significance of these military successes. Recent precision strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities have caused significant damage, setting back Iran's nuclear ambitions by years. According to military and intelligence sources, the Fordo facility, a fortified underground site, was rendered inoperable. Their approach has consistently been one of making concessions, hoping adversaries will act in good faith while disregarding historical lessons. The partisan divide in Washington has deepened, with Democrats attempting to recover from their policy blunders by calling for endless investigations and excessive congressional oversight of military actions. Despite these achievements, critics in the media and the Democratic Party continue to promote a narrative of failure. Americans desire a straightforward strategy that avoids unnecessary conflicts, holds adversaries accountable, and steers clear of the pitfalls set by globalist elites. This situation underscores the perils of interventionist foreign policies and highlights the necessity for a government that prioritizes American interests. This approach is particularly widespread in discussions about Republican administrations, emphasizing slogans and perceived defiance.
Even Trump couldn't deny that reality. And the embarrassment that his ceasefire wasn't as forever as he had hoped, and all those big feelings, apparently, prompted him to drop an F-bomb on the White House lawn this morning.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Intelligence leaks are presented as conclusive, while official statements from military leaders and the White House are dismissed as mere propaganda. Despite this, MSNBC hastily labels the operation a failure, disregarding the Pentagon's caution and even admissions by Iranian officials of significant damage at several sites. The true disgrace is not a momentary outburst on the White House lawn, but the persistent refusal by many in the media and political spheres to address the failures that have led us to this critical juncture. The network's obsession with the president's frustrated remarks on the White House lawn diverts attention from critical policy discussions. Visually, MSNBC employs dramatic headlines, repetitive footage of the president's outburst, and split-screen views of military actions and diplomatic discussions. It frequently echoes claims about lies and crumbling narratives without adequately addressing the complexities of the intelligence involved. For example, the Defense Intelligence Agency's preliminary report is accepted as definitive when it challenges the White House. Yet its limitations and provisional nature are overlooked. What we observe instead is a media landscape that thrives on outrage and partisanship, leaving the public entangled in endless foreign conflicts with little understanding of how these actions serve their interests. A more responsible media approach would examine claims from both the administration and the intelligence community, recognize the limitations of preliminary reports, and offer a complete view of the policy decisions involved. When the administration addresses leaks and selective intelligence, the network frames it as an attack on the intelligence community rather than a legitimate concern about politicized leaks and the necessity for secure, accurate national security information. Rather than providing a balanced analysis of the ceasefire's collapse, MSNBC zeroes in on the drama, portraying the situation as a unique embarrassment to this administration while ignoring years of escalating failures under previous Democratic leaders. The network fails to adequately present the nuances of ceasefire negotiations or the strategic considerations behind the administration's decisions, choosing instead to emphasize every perceived error, reinforcing its narrative of Republican failure. MSNBC's coverage often prioritizes sensationalism over substance, focusing on every minor outburst and mistake as though it were headline news. The network's use of sources and expert opinions is notably biased. There is little effort to examine the motives or credibility of anonymous sources or to explore the intelligence community's internal disagreements. It would also hold the previous Democratic administration accountable for its role in enhancing Iran's nuclear capabilities and destabilizing the region through poorly negotiated deals and lax enforcement.
But as the Washington Post reveals, Netanyahu's decision to strike Iran had been in the works for months, even before Trump was elected, and was more kind of a strike of opportunity than a strike of necessity. I mean, the Post reports that when Netanyahu finally launched a surprise attack on Iran, the decision was not so much driven by new intelligence indicating an Iranian sprint for a nuclear weapon or any imminent threat to Israel. Rather, Israel seized on what it saw as a unique opportunity to execute plans, carefully laid months and even years in advance. In other words, the urgency of the attack had nothing to do with brand new intelligence about Iran's nuclear program. Israel just needed a pretext to carry out the attack they had already planned, that Netanyahu had been having dreams about for years, and a potentially willing partner in the White House to help them.
The revelation that Netanyahu executed a long-planned strategy with U.S. military support raises critical questions about who truly sets our foreign policy agenda. The Washington Post report that Netanyahu's strike on Iran was months in the making, long before any imminent threat was declared, underscores a significant issue with foreign policy decision-making in Washington and Jerusalem. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment reaction of fresh intelligence, but a premeditated strategy, with Israel choosing the best timing and a supportive U.S. administration to back it. When media outlets frame these military strikes as either triumphs or disasters based on partisan lines, they overlook the long-term economic and strategic costs of our perpetual involvement in the Middle East. Wall Street analysts might label these events as market opportunities, but the reality is starkly different. This approach draws the United States into a regional conflict not because of direct threats to our security, but due to the ambitions and strategies of a foreign leader. The deployment of expensive munitions, such as bunker busters, costs tens of millions of dollars each. Nearly 3/4 of Americans oppose sending ground troops, and a majority insist that any military action should require congressional approval. Financially, military escalations like these have immediate and profound impacts on American households. Congress often bypasses its duty to authorize these actions despite clear public opposition. The previous administration's policies, which legitimized Iran's nuclear ambitions and empowered hardliners, set the stage for this crisis. Americans deserve leaders who prioritize their interests, resist globalist interventionism, and demand accountability from those who view our treasury and military as tools for foreign agendas. The financial repercussions of this strike extend beyond Wall Street and the Pentagon. Each time the U.S. entangles itself in foreign conflicts, it's Main Street that bears the cost, from higher prices for bread to increased mortgage payments. Are we defending our national interests, or are we merely tools for another nation's goals? This is the real story behind the headlines, and it merits far more attention than what the mainstream media currently offers. American families are forced to shoulder the burden of decisions made thousands of miles away, often without their consent or input. They reach into every American home, affecting paychecks and the survival of small businesses in an increasingly uncertain world. The beneficiaries in such scenarios are often global financial institutions and multinational corporations that thrive on chaos and volatility, not the working men and women of America. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The truth is, both parties have misled us on foreign policy. Ultimately, the real embarrassment lies not in the Oval Office but in the newsrooms that cling to a broken narrative. This White House is the first to prioritize America's interests and reject the costly, reckless interventionism of the past. They purport to expose lies, yet they never examine their own role in endorsing endless wars, failed globalist agendas, and the hollow promises of the Democratic Party. What we are witnessing is not journalism. It's a performance, a tired ritual where the same media outlets that once shielded the Biden-Harris administration now scramble to manufacture outrage against President Trump, perhaps because they profit from chaos while this administration champions order. Be sure to comment below while dropping a like and subscribing. Until next time.